Well, good afternoon. Welcome to your second session. It's the last one, Joseph. What are we going to do?
So many maps, so little time.
Even though Joseph's class ends today with the shortness of it, we have plenty at the Academy of September classes still starting. Please visit the website at academyll.org. We have lots of invitations and openings for slots. Debbie is on. She's our register. I know she could take phone calls, or at the end of today's meeting, if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, greetings all. Joseph Kursky here with you again, wearing map tie. Darlene was sharing her. Darlene, do you want to hold up your mapping clothing? Darlene's got a very cool map clothing item. Nice. So thanks, Darlene. That's pretty cool. That would go well with this map tie. But anyway, folks, welcome back. We have so many maps, so little time. But it's really good to see your bright, shining faces again. Last time, just as a short review, hopefully you're seeing this screen here, that I made as strong a case as possible for mapping and geography are actually revolutionary. And Darlene and I and others were just chatting about, you know, some things going on our planet right now, climate, natural hazards, and other things that are intertwined with why this actually all matters. And as you recall, one of the things that I again, tried to make as strong a case as possible for is that geography actually is about holistic understanding of the world. It is a high-tech discipline. It's not memorizing the imports and exports of Peru or the state capital of North Dakota, et cetera. I mean, those are facts, and those are important in any discipline, right? To have some sort of factual knowledge, but the idea of looking at the world, holistically, the intertwining of the biosphere, the lithosphere, the anthrosphere, the human sphere, the hydrosphere, the cryosphere, the ice sphere, and how they all interact is really fundamental to geothinking, if you will. And secondly, that maps are important tools to understanding the whys of where. In fact, as you may recall, we talked about what's where, why is it there, and why should we care. Thanks. Why should we care about population change, biodiversity loss, ocean acidification, climate, natural hazards? Well, they're important. Human health. They're important 21st century issues. They all have a spatial or a geographic component, and they all impact our everyday lives. And I would argue also that many of the variables in those 21st century issues and problems that we talked about are going in the wrong direction, right? And we need to reverse those directions. And one of the ways we can do that is to think spatially and temporally about these problems and use these tools. So these tools are fascinating for you and I to discuss in the ALL course like this. And I'm going to give you some websites and tools that you can keep pursuing some of these things on your own. And also, you know how to get a hold of me, right, folks? So I'll remind you about that in a bit. But more importantly than even those noble goals is the bigger goal of building this more sustainable, healthier, happier, more resilient community, region, country, world. That is the goal of all of these geotechnologies. Remember, geotechnologies, geographic information systems, remote sensing, looking at the world from space, GPS, global positioning systems, or more broadly, global navigation satellite systems, and web mapping. All of those are geotechnologies. And remember, we talked about the fact that there are other important technologies, one of which is biotechnologies and one is nanotechnologies. According to the US Department of Labor, back in 2004, these are the three that they identified as being the key tools for solving 21st century problems. And so we have been immersed last class and in this class about geotechnologies. One of the things that I wanted to do is start off with this evening or this afternoon or whatever time zone you folks happen to be in. Speaking of which, we've got folks from all over the world and all over the country here taking this course, so that's exciting. So let's just take a look at that. How might we use mapping tools to understand even our class? Well, we can look at it in a spreadsheet, right? And that would tell us some information, and that's all interesting. Nothing wrong with spreadsheets. But remember, a geotechnology database. It's like a geo database. And it's like spatial enabling your spreadsheet. Now, you've all used Excel or other spreadsheets from time to time, Google Sheets, etc. But let's say I wanted to look at, for example, how about this? Let's look at how about let's make a map, okay, of our class participants. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to show you how I actually built this map. So here we've got, based on my fine colleagues at the ALL, they sent me a spreadsheet of all y'all, as they say in Texas, ustedes, vous, tú, you all, okay? And because it had a location in it, and this might be slightly out of date, we might have had people join the class after the spreadsheet was made, but no worries, you get the idea. If you've got any information that can be tied to a location, you can make a map of it. So here we've got this map, and as you can see here, I've symbolized the map with this particular symbol. I've used ArcGIS.com, the organization that I work for, created these mapping tools for you and I to use. So I said, okay, I want to map that with a hiker symbol, because we're all about, getting outside on the landscape, right? So what if I said, it's hard for me to see that hiker symbol. With these dynamic maps, you have the capability of saying, I want to bump up the size of that hiker symbol to, I don't know, a 41 point hiker. Okay, now I can see it a little bit more clearly. I can see that we've got MW down in North Carolina. We've got our LRJ in Franklin, Pennsylvania. I know a couple colleagues here, DS and DC up in Iowa right now, et cetera. We've got LZ in Indiana. Okay, so we can kind of get this sense of a distribution, but we've got, of course, since the ALL is actually located in Metro Denver, obviously we're going to have a lot of people from Metro Denver, because in not too distant past, most of the classes at least were actually face-to-face for the ALL. It's nice that we have these web tools, but we can see a distribution. Maybe a better way to symbolize that is to change that and say, okay, I want to make a heat map. A heat map is not hot colors symbolizing actual temperature, but it's a way for you to visualize distribution. So in this sense, we've got a heat map here. And as you probably would expect, based on the hiker symbols in 2 minutes ago, now I see there's a hotter color, meaning there's more of something, in this case, attendees of the class in Metro Denver. And if I zoom out, I'm going to see some spots in different parts of the country, right, for where people are located. Now, how did I do that? Well, I actually went to this arcgis.com site and I said, I'm going to add a layer from a file. Where do I have a file? I've got a file that is actually a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, it looks like this. I've got initials, city, state, and zip code. The only two fields that I use to map are city and state, as you probably would imagine. So, okay, that being said, think outside the box now. If you can map attendees of our course, couldn't you map observations of weather or pine beetle infestation or positions of historical homes in your community, or anytime you have a location, and if you've got it on a clipboard, you can enter it in a spreadsheet and then map it. That's the power of these mapping tools, is that you and I have at our fingertips the ability to add our own data and make our own maps. So it's no longer, for example, those agencies only that I used to work for, USGS, topographic maps, right? Satellite imagery, et cetera. Census Bureau, I used to work there too. NOAA, oceanic and atmospheric maps of all kinds. Those are scientific and mapping agencies. And there's the UK Ordnance Survey. There's the Kenya Mapping Agency. There's scientific and mapping agencies all over the world. And in the past, only they really had the technology and capabilities to make maps. You and I now have the capabilities of making these maps just like this, and a lot more to come. So that's something to keep in mind. This is pretty powerful. This took me all of what? I went to the spreadsheet and I added the spreadsheet. Notice also though, that I mapped it on city. And so when we talk about societal implications of mapping, last time we touched on this a bit, and that is location privacy. How many times have you been on your phone and it says, hey, do you want to share your location with a new app you've installed? Okay, that's fine, but why does the calculator app need to know my location? So do you say yes to every time it asks you, do you want to share your location? Or do you think about it and say, well, maybe not right now. Now, if you have certain needs, like if you want your pizza to be delivered, right, you're going to actually indicate the location of your actual residence, correct? If you're using an app, for example, on your phone to actually have that delivered, or Uber Eats or whatever it is. But for certain things, you don't want to share your location. So I just like people to think about location privacy as one of the societal implications of mapping. You know, advertisers and others really want to know your location, not only where you live, but even inside the store, right? There are certain sensors in some stores that track, if you're on your phone, where you're spending your time in that particular store. Interesting. So they can figure out where best to place advertisements and kiosks and things like that, especially in times past when we were all in physical face-to-face stores. But anyway, the location is very important to lots of people. Okay, so we've mapped people right here, but the point I wanted to make there is that I'm only using the city location. So if I'm, for example, zooming into Metro Denver here right now, and I see, okay, there's a big spot on downtown Denver. Why? Because the geocoding for Denver is basically downtown. So even though some of you may be scattered around the metro area, all of the people that indicated that they were in Denver get geocoded right to that spot. So on purpose, I actually remove your actual physical addresses. Why? Because I don't want people to see where the actual location of our class is. If I did, would it matter? Who else knows about this map? Nobody. So one could argue that it doesn't matter, but I always like to think about that whenever I'm making a map. So as you know, I work with a lot of schools, and a couple of my colleagues here, they're in this class do as well. Sometimes we get well-meaning educators that get all excited about mapping and say, hey, we've mapped all of our students. Okay, that's fine, but don't make that map public, right? We don't want to make maps of individuals public. So when you look at census data, it's all aggregated, right? Block group, census tract, zip code. So the location privacy is something we'll come back to in a bit.